Here with Andre Metzger, distinguished member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame induction weekend. When you got the phone call, Andre, they've elected you to the Hall of Fame. What was that like for you? It's something very few people get to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool, and I think that it was. I thought someday, I figured it maybe when I passed away it might happen, but it happened now, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about how you got into wrestling. I mean, everyone has a kind of an entry story. You growing up in Michigan, right?
Well, yeah, I was a good basketball player. Was the reason, and my coach was a basketball player. The wrestler coach was a basketball player, and one guy that I had fought when I was in 8th grade at North Park. I got in a fight with him on the playground, and moved out of the inner city to Cedar Springs. When I moved to Cedar Springs, these 3 guys were coming up to my locker, and as they came up to my locker, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to fight this guy again, because it was one of the guys. His name was Scott Rameltz. And in fact, Jim Emery, who's actually here in the induction, he's a buddy of mine from high school, he was with him. And they came up and said, hey, we hear you're pretty tough. Would you try wrestling? I go, no, I'm a basketball player. They said, well, man, our coach is a basketball player. So I talked to the coach, and he said, well, we'll practice basketball once in a while if you'll wrestle. So I said, okay, well, so I did it. But I understood wrestling because my dad did it and my brother did it. So I understood it a little bit, but I wasn't going to do that sport. But then I decided to do it. And once I did, it was exciting, and I kept doing it.
Well, and you did it a lot. As a young guy, you wrestled a ton. Heck,
Yeah.
You spent a year in Japan in high school before you even went to college to wrestle. Why so much competition? When you made the commitment to do it, you just wanted to be out there?
I think that why so much competition is just because there was there. It was we had that avenue. We had both sides of Michigan. The state of Michigan had you had the AAU and the USWF trying to move in too. And so we had plenty of competitions that were there. And why I just enjoyed doing it. Once I started doing it, I wanted to get good at it. It's like anything else. I mean, I was terrible at it at first. So, in fact, one of the great things about my coach, my high school coach, even though he's a basketball player, is he allowed me to challenge constantly. Almost every day I said, can I challenge the guy? So a guy by the name of Gary DeBoer, I remember his name. He really never became that much in wrestling, but he helped me a lot he was there, and I challenged him probably 6 times. Finally, I beat him. The 6th time I beat him, I hit him with a headlock and ended up winning. He never challenged me once I got on the varsity team. So that's the difference. Some people, like myself, enjoy going out there and competing and trying to become the best. And like I said, I think that the real important statement is that the difference between the best and the rest is the rest quit. The best don't quit. They keep on getting up. They keep on going. And our sport is a sport that you don't just pick up overnight, and you just don't have a talent to wrestle. Wrestling is a sport that you've got to learn, especially if you reach a level of that I reached at a world-class level.
Yeah, so won numerous junior national titles, decided to go to the University of Oklahoma. Why OU? And talk a little bit about the characters on that team, because you guys had some great wrestlers.
Well, when I first got there, we had Roger Frizzell, Roger Frizzell was one of the best wrestlers in the United States as a high school kid. I believe he won the states 4 times. And I had wrestled him quite a few times in different competitions. In fact, looking the other day, I have 12 national titles. I won 12 junior Olympic titles, and then I won 3 or 4 junior world titles, and I won 5 USWF titles through high school. So I did have a lot of competitions. But when I went to Oklahoma, you had Roger Frizzell, then you had Dr. Death, Steve Dr. Death Williams, who was out of Colorado. Then, so he signed there. Tracy Kramer signed there from Oklahoma also. We had, to miss some of them, Dugan went in there. And then we had a great class. Edgar Boo Thomas signed, which Landrum, his brother, wrestled for Oklahoma State. So we had Stan Abel, who was our wrestling coach at the University of Oklahoma, signed a lot of great kids that year. Then all at once, I knew Dave pretty good because we were both really good in high school. We wrestled in the Great Plains together and things like that. So I had seen him because he would wrestle some of the senior levels also, even though we were in high school. So I recruited Dave and Mark with Stan, of course, but I was kind of a student recruiter. And so once they got there, which was my sophomore year, it got even better with the people we had. But we also had like Israel Shepherd. We had so many great wrestlers, and some of them didn't make it. Gary Baker, some of them just didn't make it. You had Keith Stearns, who quit. Here we go, come in as a freshman. Keith Stearns, a national champ, 167-pounder, quits the next year because he can't really, he was getting torn up in the wrestling room. He just could not believe here he is a national champ and couldn't get it done in our room and ended up quitting. Once again, he was the rest. Although he's a national champ, never will ever take that from him. He's a great guy. So we had such a great room, and then we all enjoyed, like I said earlier, that we looked for the uncountable move. We used to do name that move, like Dave, Mark, Jim Hall, Roger Frizzell. We'd do name that move. We'd do it mimic with no partner, and we'd say what move am I hitting? So if maybe a lace leg throw, was it a step around body lock, was it 2-on-1 to a fireman's carry, 2-on-1 to an ankle pick, 2-on-1 to a dart throw. We do name that move, and we got really good at it. So we were all trying to develop our skills to keep ourselves visually understanding this game, because I don't believe our mind can tell the difference whether we're actually hitting the move or if we're visually hitting the move in our mind. And it really works. They've done studies on this too, by the way.
So, everyone wrestles, learns moves. You invent moves.
Yeah.
The Metzger. People did it then. People do it now. You hear about it on TV. Little kids are doing it. Where'd that come from? And is it something you always did, or just something that kind of worked out in a wrestling room one day?
Well, I think that it was because I read so many books on wrestling and really looked at the pictures. So when I looked, sometimes when you see something, I'm also dyslexic, which is a very good gift for a wrestler, because I can read a book upside down as fast as I can right side up.
Yeah.
But I've got memories, so I think in pictures. So whenever I hit a move, I just was tenacious enough and had the stick-to-itiveness to hit those moves and stay intensely on that move. So for instance, the Mets. The first Mets that I ever hit really was what's called a high crotch.
Right.
Okay, and let's make it real simple, double underhooks, or we'll call it a cow hook. When I would shoot the high crotch, these guys were trying to cow hook me because we were young kids learning how to wrestle. So when they picked me up, I stayed in their crotch. I did not let their crotch go. Then I started learning that if I grabbed their head, I could step behind their leg and bring them backwards. But see, I also knew judo, so I could throw them with a headlock. So I set it up with a headlock by learning how to release from the crotch, go to the headlock, then go back to it again. So I did a lot of what I would call chain wrestling, where I learned from one move to another to another. So I set people up, because really, if you understand you're basically dancing. When you wrestle, you're actually learning how to dance. If you can get that person to get into a position where they don't understand where they're at, that's where you can catch them. So all of the 6 series is off the Metz's, and then I have a Gar series too, which Dave named the Gar series. We started doing it. Now people are calling it, well, they're going to the ankles a lot. Well, I did that. We did that quite a bit and started turning with it. So as far as, like you're saying, innovation, we were always innovative. That's why we did name this move. In other words, we tried to find a move that you couldn't name, but if you could find it, then we started naming them. We would name them even though maybe no one's ever hit that move. Especially like, for instance, an arm throw. Yeah. See, the arm throws that we started hitting, Dave got really good with it too. And in fact, one time when I was working out with Dave, I threw Dave with an arm throw, and and I showed him how I did it. And he goes, "Man, I can't believe you helped me with this." And I'm going, "Dave, I'm your teammate." So we were teammates, and I wanted everybody on my team to be the best they possibly could be. Because the better I could get them, then if they could counter me, well, then I could learn a second move off from it. Because maybe I went to, instead of the arm throwing him, I could drag the opposite side or drag into a shot. So
Top memories from college wrestling?
Probably top memory is of course the NCAA titles. I'll tell you one of the memories that I have that, for I guess, well, there's so many different memories, but there's things that I saw happen in slow motion.
Yeah.
A lot of times. When you have a skill and you understand where you're at, it really things come to you so easily. Especially if you set somebody up and it feels like butter. It feels like, man, you can just cut it through like butter. And I did it so many different times where I set people up. Like, for instance, an example is one guy told me bench 450 pounds and before I wrestled him. So I'm thinking, dude, I'm going to make this guy come on. Once he got a double underhook on me, he thought he was going to just bowl me over. And I threw him through the nickel seats and pinned him in about 23 seconds. Shook his hand and said, boy, you're strong. Because he was, but he did not realize how I was setting him up. It was like nothing to me.
So you won a freestyle world medal when you were like still a real young man. I mean, talk about competing at that world level, because you didn't just beat a lot of Americans. You
Right.
represented our country.
I won the nationals in Canada. I won the nationals in Japan, and I won their national collegiate national championship, and I won the nationals in America, all at a very young age. And I think what made me tough as a young kid was I didn't have any obstacles in front of me, because thoughts are obstacles. I didn't have the negative thoughts. I always affirmed myself. I always would say, Lord, give me the strength and the power to do the best I possibly can. I didn't sit there and say, well, this guy has this guy has this, and worry about all that stuff. See, because worrying doesn't help you a bit. You've just got to be prepared. If you prepare and plan, you can expect to do something. So that's where I always prepared and figured I knew I was ready. I didn't dissipate. I made sure that I was ready. And I think that's the main thing that made me tough as a young kid. And I was not concerned that this guy was a national champ. I mean, I didn't care. You could tell me all your accolades. You could tell me all your accomplishments. That was not what I'm looking for, and still today I don't. That doesn't matter a bit. When you walk out on the mat, it doesn't matter what that guy's done. It's what happens right now, immediately in front of you.
What do you like about coaching? I mean, you've done it at the college level. You're working with young kids again.
Dude, I mean, yeah, again, not again. I've
Always.
Coached all my life.
Yeah.
Okay, I've coached I've coached basketball. I've coached. When I was forced out of this sport, okay, I coached wrestling first. I had a lot of success at the University of North Carolina. They had never won the ACC. We won the ACC both years I was there. At Indiana, we took them to number 2 in the Big Ten and 5th in the country. We also took North Carolina took 3rd in the country. So and then I had to get out of the sport after I went to Villanova. Once I got out of the sport, as far as coaching goes, I stayed involved in coaching. I coached baseball, won about 7 titles in baseball, 7 titles in basketball, 3 state titles in golf. So I stayed coaching. I stayed active within coaching. I've never stepped out of the coaching realm. And really, coaching is coaching, because all you're trying to do is believe in your kids before they believe in themselves, and understand that they can be great. Anybody can be great, and you don't determine. It's like one golf coach once overheard him. He says, well, what do I do with this guy that I have? I have a kid that, he's my 6th man, and I really want to get him in there. He goes, well, you have to go by your gut feeling. And I said, listen, I don't think it has anything to do with your gut. It's everything to do with his heart. And that kid, if he's scoring better, then you need to play that guy. You can't play favorites where you're saying, hey, I know this kid has the skills. Because, yes, you may know it and you may really feel it, but until that kid actually wakes up inside himself and brings the lion out of himself and says, hey, I'm ready to roll, then it doesn't matter what I think as a coach. When I want victory more than my kids want it, which almost always happens for coaches,
Yep.
but those kids have got to have that. Once again, desire is the only thing you can't coach, but that doesn't mean you can't get a kid to get desire. You can trick him into having desire too, by the way. There's so many different ways. And so it depends on what sport you're coaching, but I love to coach wrestling, wrestling's a very difficult sport to coach. You really don't help a kid a lot when he's out on the mat. You only help him in the room and really understanding what's going on. And style conflicts and things like that come into play. That's where you can help as a coach. Say, hit these moves. You know, it's one of the things I did with Brian Dolph. Brian Dolph was getting beat by Flippo all the time. I think his name was Flippo from Purdue. And that's what I did is told him, this is what I want you to do. When he quit thinking about all the other things and stayed focused, he ends up winning.
Is this a fun experience so far this week?
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, that's really, we had a great time last night and looking forward to tonight.
Well, congratulations, Andre. Well deserved, and you continue to make a difference, bud.
I appreciate you, man.
Take
Thank you
care.
very much.